Hello, everybody. I am Julián Castro, the CEO of the Latino Community Foundation, and welcome to our program today. To mark the 100 days of the Trump administration, this week, the Latino Community Foundation has been producing a series of activations that we call 100 Days of Latino Resilience, Power in Community. During these first 100 days of the Trump administration, there have been many policy changes, executive orders, articulations from the executive branch, judicial rulings that have intimately and significantly impacted Latinas and Latinos throughout the United States. The mission of the Latino Community Foundation is to unleash the civic and economic power of the Latino community. We believe that only if Latinos succeed and prosper can the United States prosper, because today Latinos make up 1 in 5 folks in the United States, 40% of the people in California and Texas, and a quarter of the children in our country. And so those executive orders, those judicial rulings, and also what happens in Congress will impact not only the Latino community, but our entire country and affect all of our futures. We're pleased today to bring you a conversation with the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Representative Adriano Espaillat. We're going to introduce him in just a few moments. But first, a couple of things. I want to give a shout out to our team and thank them for the production of this town hall. I want to thank our board and our supporters. I also want to thank and give a special shout out to our Latino Giving Circle network members. We have 18 giving circles now, and these members are some of the most active people in their own communities who have chosen to give back up and down the state of California, and soon in the states of Arizona and Nevada as well. I want to thank all of you for joining us. In this town hall today, we're especially proud to partner with the Voto Latino Foundation. For 2 things, actually. First, for a poll that we released just 2 days ago on attitudes of Latinos toward the Trump administration and on different issues that affect their lives at the 100-day mark of the administration, and then today's event as well. I've had the pleasure of working with their CEO, Maria Teresa Kumar, for a number of years. Maria Teresa is one of the most dynamic leaders in Washington, and for years now has made a big impact through Voto Latino on ensuring that more Latinas and Latinos get registered to vote, more of them are well educated, and more of them are mobilized. That fits perfectly with what we do at LCF, trying to ensure that the Latino community is as civically engaged as possible. And so with that, I want to welcome Maria Teresa Kumar and say thank you for joining us today and for being a part of these activations this week to mark the first 100 days of the Trump administration.
Julián, that was such a generous introduction. I feel like I owe you lunch now. But
next time I'm in DC.
Yeah. So in all seriousness, it was really such a no-brainer for us to partner with the Latino Community Foundation and with you, Julián, because of your extensive leadership and commitment to the Latino community and the advancement of American values every single day. I think we have had so many conversations when we recognize that part of the challenge and a major gap in the Latino community is that we don't have enough people in the Latino community investing in ourselves. So it really fills me with such great joy to hear that you have been able to expand the giving circles in Arizona and in Nevada, and to keep me apprised when you do it in Texas and Florida and any other place. And I'm happy to be able to ensure that you are as strong as possible, because there is such a gap and at the same time, such a need. We felt incredibly privileged to work with you on this poll, because we do think that in our workings together in the past, Julián, we have been very clear that the Latino community often doesn't feel heard, and that there is just a permeating frustration in the Latino community because government is not responding fast enough to their ever-changing needs. And one of the things that we learned in the first 100 days was inflation is still absolutely top of mind, and they don't feel that this administration is actually implementing the mandate that they expected. And that mandate very simply was to lower the cost of eggs. when we walk through some of the findings, one of the things that was alarming to me at the same time was that 1 in 10 Latinos know someone that's been deported. 66% of us feel increasingly under fear of in our personal safety. And that's the adults speaking. We don't know yet what's happening with younger folks, and it's something that we would love to continue exploring, because we do think that that is an untold story that in the last election in 2020 actually had a great impact for mobilization. I say this because I'm also very pleased, and thank you for having the Chairman Espaillat join us today, because it's important for us to be able to speak not only to local community, to donors, but also increasingly to leadership, because at the end of the day, the Latino community, we want to row all in the same direction to ensure that we're lifting all boats, but also being very much an integral part of the conversation with what's happening in our country. And with that, I want to introduce Elizabeth from GQR, who doesn't really need an introduction. She's been working very closely with Voto Latino for several years, but GQR really is at the cusp of what is happening, not only through focus groups, but also research to help us better understand the pulse of the Latino electorate, but so that we can also get practical advice on how we can translate this polling to actual programming, which is what we focus on here at Voto Latino. Today, Voto Latino has registered close to 2 million voters, and we mobilized close to 1.2 million registered voters in 5 battleground states last election cycle. Our hope is to continue that effort of educating, empowering, and more importantly, working with the Latino Community Foundation and Julián on continued leadership in any ways that we could be supportive. And with that, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for the conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to have done this research. I'm going to go through our poll findings. Everybody should be able to see the poll results up on their screen. Just waiting for that to pull up. Okay. Next slide, please. So just for folks, for their awareness on this poll, we conducted this poll from April 10th to the 14th, so just before the 100-day mark. We did this poll multi-mode. It's 1,000 Latino voters who participated in the 2024 elections. So there's a lot of 100-day polls out there. A lot of them are national, but none are of Latino voters who voted in the 2024 elections. This was a multi-mode poll. 25% of the respondents were through live phones, 53% were through text to web, and online panel was the other 22%. The poll was bilingual. The respondents were offered the option to take the poll in English or in Spanish. Next slide, please. So a couple of the key findings, and Maria Teresa highlighted several of them, but the first 100 days of the Trump administration, Latino voters are very worried, very angry, and afraid. There's just a high degree of uncertainty. Inflation, which we saw before the election, was the top concern. It is still very much the priority for Latino voters, in particular, the younger Latino voters. Trump has not kept his promise to get inflation under control. He is not seen as doing a good job on that. And while many Latino voters are waiting and watching, they feel that they have a high level of disapproval on many of his actions and on the issues that he is tackling. In terms of integration, we see that they feel he has gone too far, that many know somebody who has been deported, and there is a high level of worry that somebody close to them will be deported. Next slide, please. So just looking here at the emotions of how Latino voters are feeling, you have over 1/3 that are worried. You have 19% who are fearful, 16% that are angry. I mean, you have a lot of negative emotions. The key takeaway from this data is that there's a lot more negative emotions than there are positive emotions at all. And when we look at some of the different groups within Latino voters, women are more likely than men to be worried, in particular, women under 35 years of age. In fact, almost 1/4 of women under 35 feel a level of hopelessness. Next slide, please. So just diving a little bit deeper into how they are feeling. So just simply watching the news, almost 3/4 say that it makes them feel anxious and stressed. 2/3 are worried about their safety and that of others around them. They feel overwhelmed and burnt out about all things going on in the world. And in fact, there's little difference in these feelings across gender or age or even place of birth. However, the good news is that there is a social network support system within the Latino community, 77% saying they feel connected to others and have a strong support system. So that is some positive information. It just shows the closeness and the connectedness of this community. But there's also a level of optimism. 72% feel there's more good people in the world than there are bad people. So there is this level of optimism, but there's also this high degree of anxiety and worry. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, we've heard a lot about this. It's the inflation and it's the economy that really matter. Excuse me. And for 66%, inflation and the cost of living is what they feel should be the highest priority for the president and Congress. And as I mentioned earlier, for those under 50, it's even higher. Economy and jobs, we sort of separate out inflation and the cost, and economy and jobs is the second most issue. So dominating is economic issues, followed by healthcare and Social Security. Next slide. How do they feel about the economy? Look, it's not going well. Apologies. 59% say it is getting worse. This feeling is very strong among younger women. Next slide. Personal finances, it's going a little better, but not much. In fact, only 16% say their personal finances are getting better. 43% say it's getting worse. This is particularly true in terms of it's getting worse or going the same, but in a bad way. Among younger women, we really see this divide where this level of pessimism exists between younger women and younger men, although it's not that younger men feel like it's getting entirely better. Next slide. The topic of immigration. So we know Trump has taken very aggressive actions on immigration, and 2/3 feel that he has gone too far. In fact, 45% feel that way very strongly. And when we have a look at voters who voted for Trump in 2024, you have over a quarter saying he has gone too far. Next slide. In terms of worry about deportation, 12% have personally known someone who's been deported. Just thinking about that, that's over 1 in 10 Latinos know somebody who has been deported. And in terms of the level of concern, 44% are worried that someone close to them will be deported. When we break it down a little bit further, the level of concern is highest among those whose parents were born out of the country, consumers of Spanish language media, younger voters, so Latinos under the age of 50, and especially Democrats. Next slide. What about immigration reform? Well, we tested a message that was phrased as some have proposed a new law on immigration. And under this law, migrants who've committed a crime in the United States would be deported and the border would be secure. However, migrants who entered the country illegally, have not broken laws, have been paying their taxes, would be allowed to apply for residency after they passed a background check and they would be allowed to work and stay in the country. And after a period of 10 years, they would be allowed to earn citizenship if they've not committed any crimes or paid taxes. So a path to residency, a legal residency, and a path to citizenship. There's an overwhelming level of support for this. In fact, 54% strongly favor this, 86% total favor. And whether you are a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican, whether you voted for Harris or you voted for Trump, there's overwhelming support for action like this to happen. Next slide. And just a quick overview on the political climate. Trump is unpopular. 48% have a very unfavorable view of him. Over half have an unfavorable view, 55%. So he is heavily underwater. But J.D. Vance or Elon Musk both are very unpopular among 2024 Latino voters. Next slide. So according to the CNN exit polls, Harris received 51% support. Trump received 46% support among Latinos. But look, his disapproval rate is now at 58%, 46% strongly disapprove, only 40% approval. So he has lost support from where he was at in November. Next slide. And when we break down and we ask about approval on a wide variety of issues, the top issues that matter to Latino voters that we want to be the highest priority, which is addressing inflation and the cost of living, 54% disapprove of the job that he is doing on that. He is not meeting the moment, and he's not being able to achieve what they want. When we look further at representing the interests of the Latino people, 56% of Latinos disapprove of the job that he is doing. So he is underwater on almost all measures, except for reducing the cost of government, where Latino voters are split but lean slightly positive. Next slide. And his actions that he's taking on the economy, the tariffs, 64% believe that they will increase inflation and the cost of living. So it is doing the exact opposite of what they want him to be able to do. That includes 27% of Latinos who identify as Republicans believe that the tariffs will increase inflation. 65% of independents. Next slide. And thank you so much. Those are the poll results.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that presentation. Some really insightful polling results, especially on the economy and on topics like immigration and where Trump stands today. We appreciate it. And so let's welcome in the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Representative Adriano Espaillat, who represents New York's 13th congressional district and was first elected in 2016. And we look forward to what's going to be a fairly brief conversation. You can imagine the congressman is busy, super busy, but we appreciate it, Chairman, for you lending us some of your time. So we'll jump right in, Maria Teresa and I, with a few questions. Two things that I wanted to ask you about in this poll. This was a poll of Latina and Latino voters who voted in 2024, voted in the election. And now 66% of them say that the highest priority should be the inflation and the economy, beyond inflation and the economy. And 63% of poll respondents said they believe that President Trump has gone too far when it comes to immigration. Could you talk to us about the priorities of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and what are the things that are being worked on both those matters, the economy and then also immigration policy that's really changed a lot since January 20th, is affecting so many people in our community?
Well, I'll start with the last one. First of all, thank you, Juliana, Maria Teresa, and thank you really for this report. This is information that we need. It is current information. And so today we had meetings where with leadership where I referred to the report and the poll because I think it sheds light on the current state of government and politics in the Latino community. And of course, with regards to immigration, I think his latest actions and the actions of ICE to deport, for example, 3 U.S. citizen kids to Honduras. We had a press conference this morning with the lawyers representing the families of the children, and another case that just came up today of an Oklahoma City family whose house was raided, and they were pushed out in the middle of the night in their underwears, in the middle of rain, only to find out, the ICE agents to find out that it was the wrong people, U.S. citizens as well. It shed light that, this is not just about somebody that has committed a crime and went through trial and was found guilty and his way is on deportation back to their original country. This is about legal residents. This is about U.S. citizens. This is about folks that haven't done anything wrong, that fit a certain profile that will have them be stopped by ICE and harassed and subjected to an unfair treatment. And in the case of the kids, one of them has stage 4 cancer. So, to send them to Honduras, where they may not have the kind of treatment that the child needs, it's somewhat inhumane. So I think that the American public, particularly Latinos, are starting to see this for what it is, and is shifting their opinion on immigration and on President Trump. With regards to the economy, Latinos care about the economy just like anybody else. Housing costs are especially concerning for voters. And just this week, we had a housing week of action. And today, after this conversation, we're also having a session on the cost of housing, which continues to be, for many families, amount to over 50% of their income. And so they're strapped. Also, the cost of healthcare, the cuts proposed for Medicaid and Medicare, the cost of healthcare is very high. So if Medicaid and Medicare are cut, that will impact pocketbook issues in every family, particularly Latino families. And so these are the economic issues that are changing people's minds beyond the tariffs, and obviously the impact that they will have on goods at the cash register. It is housing and healthcare that I think are also driving the day.
So I think one of the things that you touched upon was how the economy is such an important part of how Latinos in general feel today. And so, Congressman, first of all, it's lovely to see you. Julián, what you don't know is that we met earlier today and we actually dropped this report on his office. So it was all timing. I'm glad that you were able to share it elsewhere, Congressman. And one of the things that we are seeing very closely in this poll was that 72% of respondents really cared about the cuts to Medicaid. We are seeing the blueprint already of the budget that was passed in the Senate and the House that basically makes potential cuts to this. We know that in the Latino community, 20 million children depend on Medicaid. What can Congress do right now on the progressive side, and what can we do as advocates and sounding the alarm on the potential of a cut to this entitlement program?
I mean, this is a cut close to $1 trillion. I have, for example, in my district, over 600,000 Medicaid and Medicare recipients out of 780,000 people that I represent. Over 500,000 are Medicaid recipients. And so this is such a crucial issue to the district that I represent. I think that we need to push for transparency in the cuts, exactly where the cuts are going to go, because currently it's just a bulk number. But many Republican members I've heard complain about Medicaid cuts because they have constituencies, large numbers of constituents that are Medicaid recipients. And so I think there's a crack in the wall there. I think we could be able to win some of them over because they know that it would disproportionately hurt their voting base. I just think that they have not been transparent and they continue to say no, no, no. But the numbers tell us yes, yes, yes. And we need to know exactly where these cuts, $885 billion worth of cuts, are going to go. And undoubtedly, Medicaid cannot be spared because it's such a huge program in Medicaid. So, they will touch those programs. And I think that we can get some Republican support against those cuts. We have to be very strategic in the budget process. And we have three silos where we're fighting, right? Three rails. First is the courts, of course. There's over 130 litigation going on. We're directly involved in one regarding the IRS and their access to ITIN holders' information, privacy information. You have a bunch of other litigations going on where we are also involved. Then you have the budget process, which is the second rail. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of transparency. And finally, there's the community and organizing the community around these issues. And public sentiment is everything in politics and government. as Abraham Lincoln said, right in the middle of the Civil War, if we have public sentiment as we're getting it in immigration, we could win this fight.
Mm. Thank you.
Chairman, one of the things that we like to remind folks of at the Latino Community Foundation, and I mentioned it at the beginning of our program, is that today just over a quarter of the children in our country are little Latina girls or Latino boys. And that means that the proposed cuts to the Department of Education, even the president speaking about eliminating it, as well as the revamping or reinstallation of student loan payments to many people who had not had to make them in a while, can have a really dramatic impact on the level of opportunity that's available or not available to many children in our community. What is the CHC doing, and what's happening in Congress to push back against those kinds of cuts?
Well, as you know, Julián, rule number one in politics is don't mess with the moms. Right? and so that's rule number one.
You had a good mom.
Don't mess with moms, because they will come out. And so anytime you're messing with a child's education, I think the parents will react, the families and the communities will react. And of course, this aggressive approach to dismantling what is, in my opinion, the one vessel that has really given us all the opportunity to advance, which is the public education system, it's just appalling. And so, we have to, again, be very specific about the programs that will be impacted, because some of the title programs like Title I, and which is, for schools that have a significant number of kids that fall under the poverty level, they get extra funding. Or even Title II, which I believe is for English language learners, and Title III, which is for teacher training. These are all crucial ones, but these are mandated by Congress. So they're going to have a difficult time, cutting those particular mandates. But there are other programs, like the Bilingual Education Office and things of that nature that will be severely attacked. So we must protect the ones that are going to be assaulted, and those that are protected by Congress because of statute. I think we know that they're going to continue to be funded. But there's an all-out assault on the Department of Education by this administration, and we're very concerned about that. And I am concerned because somehow the debate is being put somewhat in the back burner, right? We hear more about Medicaid, Medicare, we hear about Social Security, food stamps, and we're not hearing enough about the public education system. So we got to ramp it up, Julián. This is one that we need to educate the public a little bit more about it, and particularly the moms, right? Let's educate the moms on this.
So, Congressman, I think one of the things that we found in this research is that the mandate of changing the economic trajectory of people personally has failed. That's actually not what we're seeing. We're actually seeing the GDP for the very first time being suppressed, not growing. And we saw that 71% of the respondents feel that the country is going in the wrong direction under Trump and his policies. Based on that, what opportunities do you see the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and others actually implementing to demonstrate the difference and the contrast of implementing different types of policies to improve people's day-to-day?
Well, one is lowering housing costs. And we've got a bunch of buckets that we're working on that we set out at the beginning of this session. The other one is empowering our community through AI, artificial intelligence, which I think is another source of debate, because this is about to happen. And if we're not on point with this, we'll be left 1,000 years behind. But it could be a tool for economic development and empowerment. And so AI literacy, I think, is critical, let's say, for example, in the education field. Another one is engaging. We have a niche, Juliana, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, that I think we should exploit a little bit more. And that is engaging other Latin American countries on trade and security issues. I think we should be doing more. And both Joaquin and I are very much because he's the ranking member in Western Hemisphere. We're working very closely together to meet with the local ambassadors. And we just had our first luncheon with them. And we're trying to strengthen our bonds and understand what's going on in those countries a little bit better so that we could talk better about trade and security. And so these are basic safety net programs are also critical, is because they're the ones that are protecting them. They're the ones that allow our families to be able to support that second generation and send them to college and make sure that they're part of that middle class in the future. So, defending the safety net programs, I think, is also an important goal for us at CHC.
Well, Chairman, we know we only have about 2 minutes left. In that 2 minutes, just hoping that we can wrap it up on a point of optimism. People are asking these days, how can they be involved? What can they be doing? There's that. And then there's also in the poll about 70%, altogether about 70% of the respondents said, even with everything that's going on and how they're feeling, they are hopeful about the future, at least. For folks who may be feeling anxious right now and they want to know what they can do, but they're also, they want to believe in a brighter future.
Again, I think that public sentiment drives everything. And I think that young people in particular, no major changes have occurred in any chapters or history without the involvement of young people. They are the driving force. They are the catalyst for positive change in the society. And I think we need to engage them. We need to listen to them. So very often we don't listen to them. We hear them, but we don't listen to them. And hearing is like hearing an emergency vehicle siren. You listen to a person and you pay close attention to what they're saying, because they may have in their proposals a lot of answers to the problems that are plaguing us. And so engaging young people is one. I think that we need to empower them more. I think that there's going to have to be mobilizations. I don't think that this necessarily is going to be resolved in the marble halls of Congress or in the comfortable boardrooms or corporate America, or even in some of our courtrooms. I think it will be eventually resolved in the streets of our nation, in the corners of our cities and avenues of our counties. This is where this is going to be resolved in massive numbers of mobilization that will steer public sentiment in the right direction. And I think young people in particular are critical to make this happen. I am optimistic and I am absolutely sure that it will happen. So, I ended in a positive note because I think that young people are very dynamic. I always see young people from a very optimistic and positive perspective. I think that the young people today are in far better shape, better equipped, better trained, and more prepared than we are. And I think they're going to lead us to the next generation. So, I'm optimistic that they will lead the change with us. And I really thank you for inviting me to this conversation.
Thank you so much. And Julián, as always, we feel very privileged to be part of the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you to the chairman. Thank you, Maria Teresa. And I know our conversation with Chairman Espaillat was short, but I hope you get a sense of both the issues that the Congressional Hispanic Caucus is grappling with right now, as we talked about the poll results that we found, also what's top of mind for voters. And hopefully, and his last answer to the question, I think, was germane to this, what can we be doing? I hope that in some way you're finding a way to get active, whether it's, helping people to register to vote, or doing volunteer work in your local community, communicating with your local, state, or federal representative. Some people are going to protests on issues that they care about, finding ways to contribute. The good news is I know so many of the people on this Zoom have been doing that for so long and continue to do it. I want to thank you for joining us as we continue our 100 Days of Latino Resilience, Power in Community series of activations. And I want to invite you to join us for one last activation this week our Latino Power Fund Town Hall, a virtual conversation with community leaders. We'll talk to a number of partners of the Latino Community Foundation doing dynamic and fantastic work in California on the ground to try and uplift the economic and the civic mobility and engagement of Latinas and Latinos. It's going to be a great conversation, and I hope that you'll join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here for that. Thank you for joining us.